the Cannabis Business Coach.
Hi, Mike Z here, author of the Cannabis Business Book, and you're listening to the Cannabis Business Coach podcast, where I chat with and coach the highest performing entrepreneurs in the cannabis industry.
Hi, Mike Z is. Hi, Mike Z is. Hi, Mike Z is. The Cannabis Business Coach.
Hi, Mike Z here, and on today's episode of the Cannabis Business Coach podcast, I have a very special guest joining us internationally, and that's Andrés Fajardo. He is the president and co-founder of Clever Leaves, which is one of the biggest cannabis companies in all of Latin America. And so I'm excited to have you here today, Andrés. And if you don't mind, can you do a little more in-depth intro for the folks who may be watching or listening?
Well, Mike, thank you. Thank you on the contrary for having me. It's very exciting for me to be able to share a little bit of Clever Leaf story and probably my own as an entrepreneur in this industry. So yeah, let me give you a little bit of my background. I'm a Colombian, born and raised in Colombia, and have been living here most of my life. I'm an industrial engineer and economist by trade, and joined Booz Hamilton, Booz Company management consulting firm, right after college, and stayed there for 10 years. And I worked, mostly in consumer products and pharmaceutical companies, helping them, actually not only design and come up with implementation plans, but actually it was, lucky enough to be able to implement a lot of those strategies in our clients. And I really traveled all over the world doing that. It was a great experience. I was there for 10 years. And during my time there, the firm sponsored me to go to Harvard Business School for my MBA, of which I graduated in 2005. Now, come 2010, I decided it was time to come back to Colombia. I always wanted to start my own business, but in a very management consulting way. I thought that the path that I was going to take was, from consulting to some sort of a strategic planning role somewhere, and then somebody was going to be crazy enough to give me piano responsibilities, and then eventually we would be ready to start my business. But as soccer players here say, things worked out for me, and as soon as I came back I was living in Mexico. I came back, after leaving Booz. I became the CEO of an IT services and outsourcing company, and I wasn't really experienced in IT or outsourcing, and had frankly led teams of probably 10 individuals or 20 that were really smart, self-driven, highly self-motivated, if you will, in consulting. So this was a new challenge, new industry. It was an 800-person company when I arrived there. We served, mostly the financial institutions. And during my time there, I was the CEO there for 6 years. We entered into different sectors, including healthcare. The company, grew into 2,400 people, and we were able to do many things, among which was the the digital transformation of a few of the healthcare-related processes here in Colombia. So that was a great experience, to become a leader and somebody who can better make decisions in real world as opposed to consulting. And probably one of the most important things that happened there is that I met one of my founding partners, Gustavo, here in Colombia, and we worked with him in entering healthcare and in doing all of these crazy things to transform the industry. And decided it was time to leave in late 2015, and we started another company, actually not this one, called Mojo Ventures, and it was a company focusing on starting new businesses, company builder, we call it, and it was a company builder that not only focused on the business plan or the strategy or the typical business assessment of a new business, but a lot more on the people. We are among people who believe that you make business successfully through people, not despite people, and that's what we've done here. And we call it the Mojo. You can see it back there in my background. It's really the way we work here at Clever Leaves. And we started Clever Leaves, the two of us with a third partner, Julian, who had been the drug policy director in Colombia, and who was very familiarized with all of the drug policy issues going around. He's been consulting with the U.S. Embassy and different governments. So we started very early on. April 2016, we just celebrated our 5th anniversary as a company. And from there, this is probably what we're going to discuss now. So that's when Clever Leaf started, and I've been, of course, working with the company ever since.
Wow, that's quite an impressive background from Booz Allen to Harvard Business School to leading companies and big teams to starting one of the biggest cannabis companies, one of the biggest in the world in terms of international activity, as far as I know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Let me just say, first of all, congratulations on the 5-year anniversary. That's no small task in cannabis to survive for 5 years and to grow for that period. I'm curious if you can tell me a little bit about how or why you decided to start a cannabis business.
So that's an interesting story, because as it happens, Gustavo, the partner I had met and worked with for 5 years at this outsourcing company, was a skydiver, and so is Julian. So in one of their skydiving trips, Julian, said, "Hey guys," or well, to Gustavo actually, and he said, "Hey, cannabis legislation, is passing in Colombia. This proposes a significant business opportunity, blah blah blah." So the two of them came and talked to me and said, "Hey, we want to do this. We think it's a good opportunity." And then we said, "Okay, let's analyze it." And we thought, at the time, probably three things. Number one, we wanted a business that the profit pool or the potential for growth was there. And it was evident, particularly in 2016, that the cannabis industry was very promising, and that nobody knew exactly how it was going to unfold. I don't think anybody knows exactly yet, but what we know is that eventually it's going to be a very large industry. It was going to be profitable on the one hand. So we thought, that, okay, check, it's an attractive business to be in. Second, and probably more important than that, is, we try to assess our right to win. Can we win this battle? Do we have what it takes to win this battle? So we start with the team, and we said, okay, we have a drug policy director, we have people who've been running businesses, so we have that, but we need a little bit more. And then we assessed, basically, where we're standing there as a country and the regulation. And frankly, at that point, Colombia's regulation was among the first in the world to actually happen. So it was a strong, very well integrated piece of regulation. It was early, as I was mentioning, so that was important too. Colombia has the agronomical conditions and the weather and the 12 hours of sunlight and 12 hours of darkness, and etc. So the cost positions there to make it efficient, not only in terms of production costs, but also in terms of investment costs. So, and you didn't have both at the same time, right? You have many other countries in the same tropical conditions, but you don't have other countries at the same time with the right regulation. We always thought that Colombia's, let's call it brand or awareness in the cannabis industry, which is a result of quite an unfortunate story that the country has had to suffer for many, many years, is something that could be leveraged positively. And actually, we believe companies have the responsibility to change that, but it's still something that gives you the ability to win. So we said, okay, it's a good business. We have the ability to win. Our right to win is good. So that's a business we want to go in. There was a third element was very important for us. Is this aligned with our purpose? When we started Mojo Ventures, I mentioned it a while back, we wanted to work in companies that made the world a better place, made people's lives better. And that included, for example, healthcare, or that included, renewable energies, or that included, entertainment for people. So different, potential industries. And clearly this was one, right? We could not only have, a good impact on patients themselves, but of course also in the Colombian areas where we work. So we entered it. If you look at us, we're probably the least the individuals people don't expect running a cannabis company. I'll tell you, in 2016, it was quite a shock for many people that we were actually doing that. But we believe our purpose has been right from the beginning, and thankfully we're here to continue telling this story.
Amazing. I love that. I want to highlight that those 3 points, because I think for anyone getting into this industry, or really any business, if you're going to be trying to raise capital at any point, The folks on the other side of the table are going to evaluate those same three questions. They're going to ask, is this opportunity big enough or attractive enough? Can this team win and get it done and execute? And do I care? Is this going to make the world a better place, or is this in line with my values or mission or purpose? And I think to actually raise money, you're going to have three yeses from any professional investor. So I just wanted to highlight that criteria that you and your partners used. And I want to go back and feel free to say you don't want to talk about it, but I'm very curious because I don't know much about the heritage of cannabis in Colombia. I'm wondering if you can provide a little more context as someone who's a Colombian and has lived there and really knows the culture and heritage.
Sure. Colombia has had a long history of being an important player in the illegal drug trafficking. And I would say cannabis or marijuana, was probably where it all started, probably a few decades back, and then, from that illegal trade, a few of the more, how do you call it, like the original strains, like the famous Santa Marta Gold or others, were I would say, quote unquote, developed here. They became quite famous in the recreational markets around the world, illegal recreational markets at that point. And then that, is probably something that is not as today. Frankly, I think the incidence of illegal cannabis in Colombia is quite small, but that's where it all started. Then it switched a lot more to other illegal drugs such as cocaine, because of the value, because of the availability of the product in a legal way in different parts of the world. So it shifted. But in some, Colombia has suffered quite a bit from this issue, right? Where there is a huge illegal market outside, and there are the agronomical conditions here to produce those products. So we're tied in a quite complex situation, and I think we continue to be tied to that. And that's where this name came for the well-perceived Colombian marijuana brands, or genetics, if you know what I mean. But what we think is, we can take that and actually make it into something positive. We want to say, hey, world, we in Colombia used to produce this. It's painful, but we can actually take this and make it into something good, right? That was developed for something that was not positive now is being used, to treat patients, to improve people's lives, and that's kind of what we're focusing on. And frankly, I tell you, we've done a very good job in both internally and externally changing that image, right? Because when you have a country that goes, or people in different countries in the world that see Colombia as, oh, they produce the illegal marijuana, and now you're telling them, oh, I can take this or give this to my mother because it is an EU-GMP pharmaceutical grade cannabis derived product that only 7 or 8 companies in the world could manufacture today. Well, that's very significant, and that's what we're pushing for, right? The past happened, but don't focus on what happened. Let's focus on changing that image and that view that people may have of Colombia. And let's do it in a positive way. Let's do it through science. Let's do it through innovation. Let's do it through very high quality products that end up, positively affecting people's lives.
Awesome. And so you mentioned the EU-GMP certification. And so I'm wondering if you could share a little more about the progress and traction that Clever Leaves has had as a business these past 5 years, and speak a little about maybe the future, where things are going for Clever Leaves and for Colombian cannabis.
So as I mentioned, we founded the company in March 2016, and then or April 2016, pardon me. And during probably the first 18 to 20 months, we were working a lot on develop first licensing, so all of the regulatory elements that needed to happen. 2, we were working a lot in really understanding what growing cannabis meant, what producing a medical cannabis derivative product meant, and so that's number 2. And number three, we were thinking quite a bit on our financing strategy. We as a company decided not to look for a capital until we had, more things to show, right? Tangible things as opposed to just a PowerPoint. So we started working on that probably in mid 2017 when we met, Kyle Detweiler, current CEO, and Joe Salami and other people at an investment fund called Northern Swan. It was a cannabis, focused investment fund, that was founded and run by, among the smartest individuals out there, and KKR, Blackstone, Citibank, consultants, Zaytsev. So we were a pretty good match in terms of the people, but also I think the vision was very much aligned. And we closed our first round of funding with Northern Swan in January 2018. And we continued to work like that for around 18 to 20 months, when at some point we said, I mean, guys, we work very well together. Well, we have the same values, we have the same business vision. I think, we think it makes sense to combine all of this. And we combined with Northern Swan in October 2019, and we became Clever Leaves, just one company, private company at that time. And then, to continue with the capital aspect of it, and I'll tell you operationally and product-wise where we are now, to continue with the capital aspect of it, after merging in October 2019, we continued to operate as a private company until, late December of 2020, where we, closed on our SPAC transaction with Sama. Again, same values, great people, great opportunity, and had a very successful NASDAQ listing then. So we are just one company with capital, NASDAQ listed company on the capital side of things. Now, on the operational side of things, that's where a lot of the interesting things are. On the one hand, we have production operations in Colombia and in Portugal. In Colombia, we have our infrastructure down here is geared to cultivate flower and turn it into extracts and extracted cannabis products, and we sell APIs or final products, all of them pharmaceutical grade, for medical use. Our Colombian facility has 18 hectares of active production capacity. We have more than enough, CO2 extraction capacity. We have GACP certification for our cultivation, but we also have EU-GMP, that means pharmaceutical certification for best practices from the European Union, both for our flower production as well as for our extract production. And that makes us the only company in Colombia, only company in Latin America, and among 7-8 in the world that can actually, grow and extract at the same time and have the EU-GMP certification, in a vertically integrated manner. So we're very, very proud of that. So here we produce medical products, APIs, so ingredients, or final products in the form of oral solutions. That's our first production facility. Number two, we have a production facility in Portugal, right? We wanted to make sure that we had a comprehensive offering for the medical cannabis patients. And as you probably know, more than 50% and even higher depending on the country of medical cannabis use is still in the form of smokable flower. And that is not legal in Colombia. So we decided that we wanted to go for a jurisdiction which should at least have a few of these things. And I think we found one that has all of them. One, it has to allow the production of medical grade flower. Two, it had to have good agronomical conditions that we could ideally harvest year round, and we were not only going to be constrained by one harvest a year. Three, we wanted to work in a country that had very clear regulation and had very good relationships with other countries in Europe. So ideally being part of the European Union. And four, we wanted to operate in a country where people and talent was readily available and was of the best quality in the world. And we found that in Portugal, to be very honest. We're absolutely thrilled to have made the decision to go into Portugal. We have right now a little over a hectare of active cultivation of flower, which shipped and sold our initial flower product already internationally. We're building a second greenhouse, so we're expanding our capacity over there. And again, the focus there is to produce medical grade flower for smokable consumption in different parts of the world. So that's our second cultivation facility. So we have a very comprehensive product offering for pharmaceutical or medical patients. We also have a company in the US, in Arizona, called Herbal Brands, and that company, while it doesn't work with cannabinoids right now or sell cannabinoids right now, it does have it's a nutraceutical company with distribution networks all across the US, and we reach right now with our products over 10,000 their point of sales, which gives us eventually, when it becomes more clear in terms of regulation, a path to market over there. We also have offices, of course, in Germany and the US, and we're basically that right now, Mike. We're a B2B company, right? We see ourselves as a company who partners with others to really make their journey into the cannabis industry a lot easier, a lot more efficient, a lot less bumpy, because it is bumpy anyway. But we've been in it for quite some time. We are an internationally focused company. We're a medical / pharma grade focused company, so we can make others' life easier, if you know what I mean. That's our focus. That's who we are right now. We're over 400 people globally, and we're very excited. This is a long-term game for us. It's a marathon and not a sprint, and we believe, that again, these products are going to continue to serve patients in the years to come.
Wow, yeah, it's incredible how much you've accomplished in 5 years and how much you've expanded. And I'm wondering if you can speak to it, and if not, I understand. Where do you see the company in 5 years?
We're going to continue working on all of the different markets that are open up at a federal level, at a federal, become federally legal, if you know what I mean. So we see significant expansion in all across the world. There are some interesting signs in Europe, for sure in Australia, New Zealand, Asia is an untapped market mostly. Latin America is a region where we're making very significant inroads in Brazil and Mexico, and for sure the US, right? There are signs, clear signs, probably more clear now than a few months back, about the push to make at least medical cannabis federal legal, and so we believe the market's going to expand. We believe we build the capabilities to serve that market. We believe we have a product portfolio that has good product market fit, and so we think the company is going to continue to become a major player in the global pharmaceutical grade cannabis industry. And we continue to invest day in, day out on it.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm curious how your experience in the cannabis industry has been different from working in other industries, if at all.
Well, no, absolutely. Very, very different, I'd say. And I'd start by saying that this is a completely new industry, right? This is an industry that's new, that's emerging, that's growing. And what does a new industry really mean? Means that regulation is not there. So, the first thing you'd want to go and know when you enter a new game or what have you is, at least you want to know the playing field, and you want to know, the rules. Here, they're not clear. The playing field is changing all the time. Imagine you're playing soccer, rugby, or whatever you like. The field is changing all the time. So that's one key challenge. And second, the rules are changing. So suddenly you do something which isn't supposed to be an issue, and then it becomes an issue. And that's kind of tough, of course. So I would say the unpredictability and the volatility of things is probably one of the key elements to highlight. Second, I'd say that the uncertainty, right? This industry emerging, but it's emerged with It's not one of those industries that suddenly started growing and then 10 years after it was a little bit larger. And then, but it's an industry where a lot of people came in, investors, money, so that has created in very short period of time a lot of uncertainty. You don't know what's going to happen next. You don't know exactly when a new market's going to open. You don't know exactly what how patients are going to behave in one country or the other. You don't know what decisions are going to say. You don't know what is going to be the interaction when recreational or adult use cannabis is allowed at the same time that medical cannabis, and what's going to happen. So there are a few examples here and there, but there's a lot of uncertainty. So you have to be able to live and adapt quickly as an organization, right? You have to be flexible, you have to be nimble, and you have to be resilient, because things you plan never happen as they did. I'd say you also don't know your competitors, right? So that's another reality. Imagine again, this field that's changing, the rules that are changing, you don't even know who you're playing against all the time, right? It changes very rapidly. I mean, you look back, and of course, there are a few of the bigger kind of Canadian players, even they are consolidating, of course, and so it's changing all the time. And you have to be able to craft a strategy or a vision that somehow, meets or fits, that strategy. And I would say, lastly, I think, from a capital or investor base, this is an industry that probably some people say, okay, I'm going to go in, I'm going to get out, I'm going to make a lot of money. And then you have some more, institutional investors, but then you have the retail investors already, going into the industry and going out. So I think it hasn't really, rightfully so, because it's a very young industry, really consolidated. So you have, as a company, you'll always have these short-term pressures with a long-term pressure. So balancing all of that is something that I think is quite unique. I think of myself, and we discuss it with the founders and the senior team at Cleverleaf. We're lucky, because we're able to participate in something like this, which many times, you seldom get opportunities like this in life, to be in the creation of an industry from the very, very beginning, and an industry that creates itself so fast, right? So that's what it is: fast-paced, unpredictable, but again, very, very exciting.
Yes, indeed. I agree with all of that. And, hearing you say it, it makes me feel like, oh, okay, I'm not so crazy for having this experience. This is how it is, even for someone like you who's accomplished so much. What, if anything, has surprised you most about the industry?
I think I went through the whole list. You get surprised by many, many, many things every day. It ranges from the changing regulation, the sudden changes in some regulation that you don't even think that might come. Sometimes you find regulators surprise themselves. So that's one of the key issues for us. For example, playing as an international player, that's a challenge. I'd say, working with clients and knowing that some clients are there and suddenly they're not there anymore, and that's also something that's very, very surprising. And frankly, probably one of the most important things is you grow as companies. And I'm going to talk a little bit internally. You grow as a company, and then you think, okay, you figure it out, and then all these things change, and then you have to figure it out. But most importantly, you have to adapt, right? And I think that's been something pretty impressive. Like, I had seldom been in a company. We're a large company, 400 people, but a huge company, of course, but with such an ability to switch, paths and to adapt, that is pretty impressive. Frankly, it's actually, impressed me quite a bit. And something else that I've seen in this industry, which is something I haven't seen a lot elsewhere, is, I see in this industry a sense of collaboration, believe it or not, among the companies. Yes, of course we're competitors, and of course we want to win, but the more time has passed and we all have to have lived, this uncertainties, there's a lot more space for collaboration, and that's also very interesting, I think, because it's It's an industry that I would argue that at the beginning everybody thought, larger companies, think of all of them, right? Then large Canadian companies, great companies, they all started with, this vertically integrated from seed to the last patient or adult use or everything in all markets, in all segments across the world. And we basically had the same strategy. But now I think companies are focused, and you see us, for example, in a lot of B2B and in a B2B mode, trying to work with all of our partners and our clients, a lot more open. And I think that collaboration is something quite unique, frankly, and I like it.
Yeah, definitely. And I've heard that as well from other folks, and I've seen that myself where competitors will help each other because I think there's this like shared experience of the roller coaster and the uncertainty and the difficulty and challenges of cannabis, that it's like, even if I help you, I know it's still going to be really hard for you and for everyone. From what I've seen, people really want the good actors to succeed because it's important for the industry's health and for the bigger picture. And I think the good operators realize that. Andres, I want to ask you one last question, which is, what's your highest power or what's your greatest strength that has allowed you to succeed in this space?
My answer is very clear. I am a true believer of Mojo. I am a true believer that you make business through people. And I think that's been the key to success of, myself for sure, but also Clever Leaves. I think the concept of Mojo, how we use it here is you have to have people who at the same time, love what they do, which is different from doing what they love what they do, do it without optimism and shouting to the world. This is actually something that an author called Marshall Goldsmith came up with. Now the question is, how do you implement it in a company? And for us, it's you have to work at the individual level. So making sure, that somehow they can find at the same time short-term happiness and long-term purpose in what they're doing. That's number one, but that's not enough. Two, we believe you have to work on identifying any development gaps and give them the tools to grow, because people who are growing are in that state of mojo, and you can then again achieve extraordinary results. Three, we believe you also have to work on the harder elements of leadership and organizational design. So for instance, how you set up your organization, how you set up the right decision rights, for example, and accountabilities. That's probably one of the most important ones, right? You cannot talk about a company with empowered people and then you have to be double guessing everything everybody says and making all the decisions yourself. Or how do you motivate people, the information flow, communication, so the more harder things, and then leadership. And I think we work a lot on becoming that leader, leader that inspires, leader that walks the talk, leader that sets that safe zone for the people who are working with him or her. And that combination has been what's allowed me to really become what I am today. And I think that's really the recipe for success at Clever Leaves.
Awesome. I love that. And I'm going to ask you for some coaching today instead of the other way around, like I usually do. Maybe a simple question, which is one that comes up very often and has been a challenge, not only for me personally, but for many of the guests I've had on the show and many of the people I work with. And the question is this: how do you go about finding or assessing good partners?
Yeah, well, I would say that the first thing in my mind is that people tend to focus on skills and experience first, and then so you try to engineer your team and engineer how things are going to work. I think you have to look at the person first, right? You're going to be working with people. You have to understand what their values are like, what their purpose is like, what are they doing this for, why does it matter to them. If you are aligned in those things, most probably you're going to be aligned in other stuff. If you are not aligned in those things, it doesn't matter if you have the perfect skill set in paper and this guy has the farm experience, this is the grower, blah, blah. I think that doesn't work. I think you have to start by the person. And I have to say, and I'm very proud to say that at Clever Leaves, none of us knew how to grow a cannabis plant, right? Or produce a pharmaceutical product, but it was through looking at people, and of course us as partners, the three of us in Colombia that started the company, but as I mentioned, we merged with Northern Swan and Kyle and Joe and Dylan, all of them. You know them as people, and you understand that as people you have the same objectives. You don't think alike all the time, of course, because that's the value of teamwork, and you don't do things the same way, but you have the same principles, you have the same purpose, and you have the same objective with what you're trying to do together. And I'd say that's where most people make mistakes, right? Because, say you're hiring somebody, so you have 15 years of experience doing this and that, and then you need somebody who's done this and that. And I understand that's important, but I'll tell you something, and it's actually something that was told to me when I said, that things worked out for me, like soccer players say. The times I've hired people for experience rather than for potential or capabilities, I've made a mistake. And I think that's it. You have to make sure that the potential and the capabilities and the person's there, not only the experience. And I really think, and I still make that mistake many times, still today. But I really believe that when you do that, then that's where you're going to get a great company. Kyle, nor Joe, nor Gustavo, nor Julian, nor myself had started a cannabis company. We hadn't played in the industry. And here you have a company started 5 years ago, now a NASDAQ listed company trying to sell cannabis products to patients around the world. So probably in paper, we didn't have the experience for sure, but we did have a lot of other things. We did have the right purpose. We did have the same beliefs in the way business should be run. We did have, the potential to learn and the capability to do so, and it worked. So I'm truly convinced of that. Not that it's easy to implement every time, because sometimes the safer choice is to have somebody who's already done things before. But I don't think that's the best decision.
Awesome. So let me ask you a quick follow-up question, because I think this is something where you'll have had experience, especially when a company is growing quickly and maybe you don't have time, you don't have the luxury of time to really get to know someone so much. How do you assess that, the character or the mojo or the values or whatever in a way that's not going to be misguided or inaccurate?
That's tough, and when you scale, that's tougher. And even when even when you're small, again, sometimes you say, oh, probably it's safer to get this, person who's done this. So it's hard, but I'd say we do a few things. Number one, we're very open about our Mojo culture and the way of doing business. And we, every time we talk to somebody, we're very clear on what that means, particularly if you're a leader, what do we expect and what's acceptable and what's not. So that's number one. We've made decisions as a company, with people who really don't abide by that policy. So you can be good, you can have great performance, but if you don't abide by that way of working, you shouldn't be in this company. So we made that. That also gives people, in a way, a self-selection as well. We have, very rigorous, actually, performance evaluation and processes here at the company, and we check people's competencies, frequently, and we do 360s, and we assess our leaders, because of course the first step should be to be able to make sure nobody comes in that is not what you expect, but it's sometimes too hard. So what you have to do, and we believe in that, is you have to be open at the beginning. Once somebody convinces you, based again more on the person side than only on the skills. Yeah, there are some things you have to check, right? Of course, like if you're the general counsel, you have to be a good lawyer. I mean, that's given, but you have to have other things. What we do while you're inside is we have a system to allow you to identify any gaps you may have. We provide support for people to close those gaps, to develop as a person, to develop as a leader, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And ideally, be able to promote people internally. We have a program called Mojo Hunters over here, in which before you promote anybody, before you hire somebody from outside, you first check inside, and even allow people to apply, et cetera. So we're trying to always promote people from within. And look, if we're open, if we look at the gaps, if we try to work the gaps and it doesn't work, and you have to leave. So that's the way we try to keep it close. We're also very close to people, right? I mean, if I go to a cultivation site, people know me, and I know them, and we talk and we chat about things and life and stuff. And we believe that the relationships can not only be transactional when you're talking about company employee relationships. It cannot be transactional. It has to go beyond that. And one of the ways to do that is to establish cultural relationships, to focus on their purpose, not only on the company's purpose, stuff like that.
Brilliant.
Awesome. I mean, of course, it sounds easier than it looks. Sometimes it doesn't work, but we're really pushing to make it work.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Andres, for joining me today, for sharing your insights and wisdom and the story of Clever Leaves and your progress. And before I let you go, I wanted to give you a chance to share any final words or thoughts before we part ways.
No, first of all, thanks, Mike, for having me. I apologize if I spoke too much. I get excited, particularly when talking about these topics. I find them fascinating, and I think that somehow this Mojo way of working, is a way of working that should transform the world, right? I mean, of business, and that's our dream in a way. And we believe, that kind of feeling can be, transferred to people in different industries, in different companies, and so this opportunity is actually great for that. And just probably one last thing is related to cannabis and entrepreneurship. Starting a business is hard. You have to do it for the right reasons, and the right reasons can never be I want to make money. I think that's a very lousy reason, because you're gonna have to work through too many tough times. And trust me, there are easier ways to probably make money. I would argue that there are many other ways to make even more money if you want. So you have to have a purpose, and once you have that purpose, you have to pursue it, and work hard. And you have to be able to live on an unpredictable few years. You'll never know what's going to happen next. Everything that you complained in your previous job about, how processes were and strict everybody was, now you're going to miss them. And for sure, when the paycheck date comes, it's now not, oh, they didn't pay me exactly the right amount at the exact hour I was expecting. Now it's you doing that. So it's very hard. I always say that entrepreneurship is like having kids, right? At the beginning, everybody tells you, oh, it's going to be very hard to have kids, and the first few months are tough, blah, blah, and you think, yeah, I get it. Then you have kids, and you say like, oh my God, it's a lot harder than I imagined. You even forget between your first and your second kid, at least in my case. And then, but also entrepreneurship is like having kids, in the sense that when you have your kids, you really start having some other feelings and some other sensations of satisfaction and achievement. And I think that's exactly the case with entrepreneurship. But it's not a free ride. It's not easy. And in cannabis, please believe that it's not as easy as throwing a seed and making a lot of money. It is a complex industry. It's an industry that requires a lot of work, a lot of dedication to the cause, significant capital in many cases, yeah, I think it still has a huge potential, but we're going to have to work for it.
I love that. Thank you so much for that reminder. And I just have to ask really quickly, because I'm at the point in my life where I'm thinking about having kids in the short-term future. I'm like, what's harder, having kids or entrepreneurship? Because entrepreneurship is definitely really hard, but I fear that having kids is even harder.
It's hard. It's very hard, but it's also very rewarding. So it's probably the best part of my life as well. So.
Nice. Awesome. I love to hear that. And I'm like, oh man, the thought of doing both at the same time sounds insane, but who knows?
Yeah, that's probably a bad combination, which we did, but okay. It was Gustavo, myself, Julian, we all did exactly the same.
Nice. So it's possible.
Kyle as well.
It's possible.
It is possible. It is possible.
Nice. Awesome. Andres, this has been great. I really enjoyed speaking with you today and learning from you. And thank you again for making time to be on the show. I appreciate it.
On the contrary, Mike, thank you very, very much for the opportunity. I enjoyed it a lot as well.
Hi, Mike Z is. Hi, Mike Z is. Hi, Mike Z is the cannabis business coach. Hi, Mike Z is. Hi, Mike Z is. Hi, Mike Z is
the cannabis business coach.